Okay, welcome back. It's January 13th, 2026. We're almost 2 weeks into the new year, all right? And we're going to start off with a bang this year. And, you know, for all you sales warriors or rookies that are starting out in sales and wanting to get your hands dirty and trying to um, get things going, get the ball moving, right? As we move on to mid January and work our way back to the end of January and start of February, right? It's sales. Sales is just simple, right? And again, I'm Sal. I'm Sal Cosentino. I'm just gonna make this a little quick. Sal Cosentino. Again, I am your CEO, cloud architect, right? Oops, architect. Okay. Um, So in today's session, I want to talk about a few things. I know a few days ago, we talked about sales in general and how we work with sales and how to speak with certainty or just don't speak at all and first objections. And we spoke about a few things. Work with 3 words to handle any objection. We talked about sales and how sales works. How rookie mistakes in sales, and not just the dealerships. We're talking about even the small lots. The small lots too as well, and new lot people bringing in the new lots and stuff like that, and how you're selling blind versus listening, right? And not being able to answer the right questions, et cetera, right? So, um, you need to become the following, right? We need to be able to trust you. It's all about your mindset and your attitude again, right? And I spoke about that before. Like, people can buy, people came always come to buy, right? They will buy at one point or they'll buy, and as long as you do your job effectively, and you're able to voice your opinions properly and actions towards the entire sale, then you're ready to go, right? So, a lot of the times people use, industry advocates, like sort of like sales, network marketing, door-to-door sales, direct, any mortgage agents, insurance, product services. They're biased to, they use social media, right, for prospecting, right? So they look at the looking and the replying and the judge. Um, all it takes to outperform others in sales, number one, right? These are my 4 steps. 4 steps. 4 steps. Well, simple steps. Let's say 4 simple steps. Let's grab my eraser here. All right, back to the pen. Simple steps. Simple, simple steps. Again, excuse my writing. I'm using a finger right now. Right. All it takes is to outperform others in sales, right? So, you know, the first step, right? We'll start with number one. Ask about their biggest problem before you mention your solution, right? So most salespeople pitch immediately. You're qualifying while they're still guessing in that point, right? So, ask about your biggest problem, right? Or you know what? Let's do this. Better idea. I'm on the fly. This is raw. The best thing about these sort of sales videos is everything's raw. There's no editing here. There's no pre-configuration. There's no pre-writing and stuff. There's no scripts. I'm not using any PPTX today. I'm just going to be writing everything on the whiteboard for you guys because this is going to be a quick video. Um, so I'm going to move this up. I'm going to move this up, and I'm going to use my uh, cross here, right? So, not the mathematical cross, but again, you know, your positive, negative, your negative, 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 positive, 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 right? Remember those ones that we used to teach in elementary school and high school. And the number one simple step, all it takes is to outperform others in sales, right? So, ask about your biggest problem before you mention your solution, right? So, problem, right? Talk about the problem first, right? and then mention the solution, right? So most sales pitches, most salespeople, like sales warriors like us, before solutions, right? Before solution. Again, sorry about the uh, finger drawing, but it is what it is, and I'm not making any changes to this right now. Um, so problem before you mention your solution, right? And again, a lot of sales warriors, when you're talking about the sales warriors, they pitch immediately, right? The rookies itself, sorry, the rookies. You're qualifying their like you're qualifying while they're still guessing. So the prospect is still guessing while you're qualifying, right? Um, let's see. So for example, let's say um problem, before we go any further, let's stay right here for a minute so I can understand this problem. And that's just kind of framing the call, right? You're staying on the call language, right? So why I think that works is because again, it signals leadership, leadership. This is horrible. Um, leadership prevents premature exits and keeps control without pressure. Just remember this, right? You got your problem, and you got your solution. There are tons of objections when we look into the types of objections that come through the call flow script, and I'll show you a call flow script before I move on to step two. And this is my call flow script, right? I use this call flow script, which is kind of helpful in any situation. I know, I want you sales leaders, your sales warriors or leaders, I want you guys to use this as well, and get your prospects to try it out and role play and roll and call out the plays, right? That way they're interested in, they're willing to learn and understand the issue, right? So you have your objection, your clarification, and your close, right? Clarification, and then you got your close, right? I said call it the close. Okay. So let's go on with one objection. Just before I move on, just to kind of give you guys a better idea, and then I'll move on to step two for you guys. Number two. So in this instance, we're gonna stay with I need to think about it. Um, there's many sub steps that the thinking about it, right? So your objection is to I need to think about it, thinking about it, right? So typically what happens is you're acknowledging you're acknowledging without kind of validating any delay whatsoever, right? So I understand, take your time, and that's in a conversation, right, with the rookies and prospects, right, or clients of yours, the prospects, and oh, I understand, take your time. That's a no-no, right? So what I want you guys to do is, as sales warriors, I want you to say, hey, and this is really professional. It's really straight out, like, so this makes sense. Pause. Frequency. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, so I'm clear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? That right there is a perfect response. And right, and then you can kind of go off from there, right? So think about that for a second. I need to think about it, right? And make sense. Let me ask you this so I'm clear. And again, using that pause, letting the client feel heard, gives them a little bit of a step back, right? And I think a lot of a lot of people that I've heard and mentors that I've dealt with and people that I've talked to, and even face to face, we're talking about like talking to people and looking them and networking, and I see this a lot, like acknowledge the objection, without validating that delay, right? And that sets up a frame for leadership, and that's really really important, right? As professionals, we acknowledge we want to stay on that call. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you this, so I'm clear. XYZ, right? Um, right there the customer feels at ease, right? And feels heard. And a lot of the times you can see that picture, right? Let them feel heard, right? And why? Because you're not validating, you're acknowledging this objection, sorry, without validating any delay, right? And again, it also sets up that frame for leadership, and that's important, right? So even another step, for example, you want to feel and clarify, right? After you've given that, okay, you're on the call now. Now you also want to feel and clarify, right? So do you feel? And I'll get back to number two, right? Right now we're talking about the biggest problem. We're right here. We're talking to this one right here, right? So problem by solution. So thinking about it, do you feel, right? Is a problem, right? Now, how do you, before you mention your solution? So thinking about it, do you feel, um, you know, uh, reframing, like I'm uncertain. That's another one, right? I'm uncertain. So here's another one that a lot of objections that I've seen and heard. I'm uncertain. I'm oh, let me put this okay. All right. Thinking about it, do you feel? I'm uncertain, right? That's another one. And you're gonna see this a lot in, again, you're gonna see that a lot. Uncertain. I really don't like this, but anyway, let's type this out. I miss my board here. So just gonna make a couple slides here quickly. Um I'm I am uncertain, and that's an objection, right? Another one that you could see is I need to think about it. Then there is uh you're not implanting, so basically you're not implanting ideas, you're directing focus, right? So at that point, you want to basically say, hey, what I want you to notice here is, right? Instead of I need to think about it. The important part of this is pause for a second, sir or ma'am, pause for a second and think about it. And again, that keeps them mentally present, right? So you have their shoulders up, they're laid back, they feel comfortable, and keeps the people mentally present, right? So, and then learn to trust those who understand them, right? So basically coming to the point where we're talking about reflecting before you lead, language patterns, right? It's all about the language, right? So the language is important, and these are objections. And I'm going to get back to, again, my slide in a second, for number two. So ask about their biggest problem before you mention the solution, right? So biggest problems, right? Um, see what they're asking, see what they're have, what issues they have, right? And their responses back to yours, I'm uncertain. I need to think about it, right? And you get a lot of people saying that, right? So again, hold attention, reduce your resistance, create focus, trust the person, trust yourself over the person first, right? You should be able to sell. If you can't sell, you know the product just like anybody else. If you can't sell, I would say get up and leave, right? Um, it's not really a hypnosis, it's just leadership, and it's just structured plus language, right? And here's something that I want you guys to understand, and I want you guys to know, leadership, my formula for something that I think is important to understand: structure plus language, right? And this is in business language, right? And this is in any business, right? And this is in any business, right? So, we have to um, create a leadership call flow, right? And then this leadership call flow, like for example, you're on a Zoom call with a prospect who says, I'm not sure if this is right for me. And right there is why it works. You're still focusing without pressure, but you're setting authority. And that's, sales leaders need to understand or warriors, we need to do that, right? So we need to understand why it works. So let's stay on this call for a few minutes so I can understand your concerns, right? And then ask questions like, why does it work? Like, does it set authority? Does this keep focus without pressuring what you have? And then ask questions, right? And take those answers down because those answers will help you with the next questions, right? So with those answers in mind, do you feel it's a matter of missing information? Right? Or do you feel it's more about timing, right? And this is all about structure and clarification. So leadership frame, and I'll get to number two, guys. Structure, uh, clarification. Excuse my language here. Step three, right? Why questions, right? That's most important. Like why, language, right? Why questions and language. And I'll give you some examples of those in a second. Then guide plus reframe. Right? So reframe plus guide, right? And then you have your option close option guide, right? So that's an important point. And again, takeaway on these five, right? We'll call this the five. We'll call this five um, takeaways, right? In this video. It's not a hypnosis whatsoever. It's just, this is all about leadership, structure, and language, right? So when we talk about leadership, we're staying on the call, we're guiding with the conversation. Structure, where means we're clear steps to uncover any objections that we uncovered here. I'm certain I need to think about the objections. Language, again, keep it neutral, keep it exploratory, like explore the language, right? Use good language. Excuse me. And confidence, right? And confidence will build phrasing. There's different types of, excuse me, different types of reasons as to why, for common sales objections. Just write in the comments below, and I'll send you some call scripts that use leadership plus structure and language with the word leadership, right? Um, and I'll send you over some information on that. So going back to the five takeaways, leadership plus structure plus language, you have your leadership frame, which is number one. In this number one, and again, I promise you'll get back to the second one for those four simple steps that we talked about, right? And I'm going to change the number structure here, and I'm going to center this. You know what? Let's do this. Okay, there we go. Again, let's stay on the call, leadership frame. Let's stay on the call for a few minutes so I can understand your concerns, thoroughly ask him questions, why that works, why, right? It sets authority, again, the language, right? And keeps focus without even pressuring the prospects, right? When we talk about structure and clarifications, do you feel it matters? Do you feel it's a matter of missing information, or do you feel it's more about timing? Why it works, again, neutral phasing lets them self-diagnose that point. Think about structure and clarification, right? So do you feel it's a matter of missing information? I'll give you some more examples, but in this one I'm just going to give you some ethical leader call flows just to get you to see if those work for you. And again, put your comments in, your queries, your doubts, whatever you have, even your videos of you trying this out, and let me know how it works. I'd love to give you some pointers, help each other out in any way we can, right? Build a team, build the momentum, right? So structured clarifications, again, neutral phasing, lets them, the prospect, right, diagnose themselves, right? It's a matter of missing any information? Do you feel it's more about timing, right? Do you feel it's a matter of missing information? Pause. Or do you feel it's more about timing? Stay on their frequency. Why and language? Pause and listen. Remember, stay on the frequency, pause and listen. A lot of people tell me this. So I've heard it everywhere, and I don't see it often, right? So It exposes the real objection as to the objections that we mentioned here. I'm certain I need to think about it, right? And these are the sales rookies. They don't know anything. If you should know your product more than anybody else, right? It's the customer that's unsure and needs to think about it. You need to put yourself and them in that plane here. Let's put the cloud here because and I'm certain the orange and green dot. So it's the 13th January 26, and we're talking about sales, 4 simple steps, right? And I'm here to help everybody out as much as I can. Take advice, take mentorship, learn from other people, learn from other things. But I've seen it out everywhere. Um, so again, why and structure. What else? Let's use that. Oh, there we go. So let's go to the next page, next slide. As we create our next slide here. Again, I love creating my own slides. This is again straight to the point and only used for this video, right? So again, sorry, we talked about leadership framework. I'm not going to the next slide. We talked about leadership framework. We talked about structure clarification. We talked about the why question, the language, right? And our next one is reframing and glide, and that's our step 4. So why it works, again, this shifts from hesitation straight to your solution, right? And hesitation to solutions. You know what? I'm going to not do that, and I'm going to make it less difficult for me and put my text here. And I said hesitation to solution. Hesitation to solution, right? I want to put my arrow there. Right. So, based on what you just said, it seems less like a no and more like wanting clarity on the solution. So that's a good question to ask, right? And then subcategorize to that aspect too. So if you were to move again, you're just using the one-liners. You don't have to move over. This is more of like um, a phase pitch that I told you guys about in my last when I rated my 1 to 5. And when you're doing that again, pause, hesitation, you know, stay on the same frequency, right? Be relaxed, right? So based on what you just said, we can actually do this as a general hesitation. We can talk about, price objections, budget objections, comparison to competitors. We could talk about decision-making spouses. We could talk about features, like any concerns, right? And for example, if we're talking about reframing and guidance, right? Um, based on what you just said, it seems like a no and more like a wanting clarity on the solution. What you could say is based on what you just said, it sounds like a no, um, more than wanting confidence that this solution meets your needs, right? How does that sound? For a price objection, you could say from what you shared, it seems less like the price being too high or more about making sure the value aligns with your priority. I'm not here to hypnotize you and snap your finger and expect you to buy without saying a word, like silent buying, like auction. You buy what you talk. You don't get hypnotized by buying. People buy, like I said, people buy. They came to buy. They'll buy obviously, but you know, um, stay on the same frequency. Especially when you're going into a car, like you have to overcome the objections. Your miles are too high. You're painting that picture. You're building a connection. You're making the intro, and sometimes you lose. Like I said with the rating system, you lose out on the intro. Like some people don't even go in; they just It's like, oh, what are you looking for? There's no transactional action happening. There's no transactional Carfax going on. There's no answers. You're not really asking, and these are rookies, these are novice people. You're not really asking questions from the start, right? Like you need to dig deeper with follow-ups. You have to master the art of silence note taking, right? So again, looking at the person taking notes, or listening to the sales warrior and taking notes, or listening to the prospect and taking notes, right? Make sure you have the right questions. From what you shared, and this is all about pricing, right? As an objection um, standpoint, it seems like the price being too high and more about making sure the value aligns with your priorities, right? And then give yourself some time to relax and think about what else you're going to say. You talk about budget objections, right? It sounds like it's not a question of whether this works, budget, right? But more about timing and budget allocation. And there's the word budget, right? Let's explore how we can make it practical, right? You're reframing, you're guiding with multiple, and this is just some examples. And again, I can send you some of these. I can shoot these over into a PDF if you want. Again, post uh, 4 simple steps, or we could say leadership in quotes, and I'll send that over to you. I'll give you another example of reframing and guidance with guidance in this takeaway as a leader, right? And this is more leadership. I get a lot of rookie responses like, oh, it looks like, let's say, like a feature of something, a feature of a car, like the dash, the digital dash versus the odometer, the old odometer systems. Oh, it looks like you don't want it, and more like you need clarity on how this feature solves your specific problem. Well, maybe the lights, the color of the lights reflecting the person's focal eye, or the dash inboard, the features of that, right? So have that information ready, right? U.S. sales leaders know that more. You know that just you better know your product, right? Or else get the fuck out. And I don't care. Um, this the reason why this all works, right? Is like this, right? And again, I promise you, I'll go back to step number 2. Is it softens resistance, right? So you're not really arguing, or you're kind of interpreting, right? Um, number 2, that's number 1, resistance, right? Number 2, you're leading the conversation. And that's, you're gently moving from an objection into clarity. So you've got the objection, right? And you're moving closely to the clarity part of it, right? Number 3, you're positioning sales, and this is for sales warriors to prospects, right? And again, leadership, right? So you're positioning, again, your positions. This positions you as you guide, right? So in that point, you're kind of showing empathy, and at the same time, authority, right? So positions you as a guide, right? You're not a tour guide, right? Do this, go over here, I'll email you. Let me create a calendar invite, or let me create a Zoom call meeting for you, right? You're gonna have your receptionist do all that work. You're gonna send it out in an email, or just tell them as junior, or like, oh, I'm gonna send. Oh, this is perfect. I'll write up an email for you, and I'll set this up, and I'll send it in the email, right? Um, so again, continue to lead by example, because we're sales warriors. You don't really want to do that, right? Uh, you know, like, do you really want a salesperson calling you, right? Or you don't really want that, right? You just figure it out yourself, right? So, um, position you as a guide, right? Show empathy, right? And at the same time, authority. So you're not a sales guide. You don't sell cookies. You're not a Girl Scout. Um, and lastly, we're gonna talk about just keep talking to them. Just keep talking, or them talking. Just keep them talking, right? Your prospects talking. The more they talk, the more information you get, right? It's not about, oh, you talk too much. No, just get them to talk, write down the information, jot down your notes, whatever system you need to jot it down, or have your computer ready with all the information and applications that you need, right? So you'll have all that information, right? Or just take down all their information and send it out, or get one of your receptionists or sales engineers to send them an email with that, right? Keeps on talking. Again, you're encouraging your prospects to explain their real concern. And this encourages the prospects to explain their real concern. That's what you want. So get them to talk, write it down, right? Um, one more. I'll give you guys one more and I'll go back to the original cross diagram that I had. Um, and I think this one might be pretty good. So we're gonna talk about uh competitor pricing, right? Right. There's another one. Competitor pricing. Right, that's another one here. Competitor pricing. Okay, we'll do that. Competitor pricing, competitor pricing, or comparison, pricing or comparison, right? That right there, um, that right there, you could say it seems less about the other option and more about understanding what it takes, what makes this solution the best fit for your situation. So we could say this seems less about the other option and more about understanding. And again, on the frequency, calm, collective, pause if you need to. From what I hear, don't get nervous. Your knees weak, arms are sweaty. That song by Eminem. It seems less about the other option. Seems less about and this is all about comparing with your competitors, right? So you'll have this information. It's like saying apples versus oranges, right? Apples are better than oranges, and what's best about apples, and what's best about oranges, or what's better and what's better about oranges, right? Better about apples versus better about what's better about oranges. And that was part of my three-step, the best, simple, better, and best. I don't know if you guys remember that. Simple, better, and best, right? You know, seems less about, and these are concerns you're going to get, especially when you're kind of reflating and guiding. You're reframing and you're guiding. It's all about has this hesitant objection and turning those into a solution focused conversation, and that's your whole point, is to focus on the conversation, right? Um, it seems less about the other option and more about understanding what makes this solution the best fit for your situation. Done. Right. I got more, but whatever. I'm just gonna leave you off with those five or six that I got you. Make sure you write those down. You have your book, your pen, whatever you need to do to get it done, right? Um, Again, it's not a hypnosis. This is all about leadership. It's all about structure. It's all about language. Right? The five takeaways. And on the last one, we're gonna talk about close and option guide, right? So we're gonna talk about close slash option guide, right? why why it works in a lot of situations for leadership structure and language. Why this works, your key takeaway is because it gives control, it guides decisions, right? And it presents options. Think about it, right? Like, if we clarify, and this is from sales warrior or a rookie to prospect, instead of those objections that you heard, I'm certain I need to think about it. Da, 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 da. No, if we clarify that concern, pause, does it make sense to move forward? Or would you like to explore a simpler option first? Again, I'm not reading a book, I'm not an author. I'm not a narrative. These are just um, straight out leadership call flows that I've seen. It's not a hypnosis, right? These are just some practical examples you can use in a Zoom call, right? And an ethical way to kind of hold the attention. So that's without even manipulating the person. You're not even manipulating the person at this point. You know. So if we clarify that concern, right? The concern, does it make sense to move forward? Question, right? Or would you like to explore a simpler option? Right there, the context in that kind of aspect is the prospect is kind of hesitant or just raising the objection. It's like, okay, so let me ask you this before we go any further. And this is just on a call flow script, right? For that specific instance. On the close and option guide. Before we go any further, let's stay right here for a minute so I can understand your concerns fully, right? So that right there sets leadership and keeps focus. Are you a leader, right? You're a leader. Uh, do you feel, right? So do you feel this matter is missing information, or do you feel it's about timing or priority, right? Right there, you're neutralizing and phrasing. That's a neutral phrase, sorry, that allows the prospect to self-assess. And again, do you feel this is a matter of missing information, or do you feel it's more about timing or priority, right? Pause, listen, right? Frequency. Um, it looks less like it doesn't work now and more like timing or allocation is the issue, right? So resistance, position you as a guide, right? You're not that sales guide. You don't need to go, or tour guide that needs to go, purchase, sell tickets to customers that are coming in and going to a booth and you're in a booth and you're selling tickets, right? And then I also want to add one more actually, which is kind of cool. And that one there is and for some reason I want it is the optional clean exit. Clean exit. I call this the paradox close. I promise you I'll go back to the step number 2. If now isn't the right time, that's okay. Would you like to pause and revisit later, or should this conversation or close this conversation for now, right? So respect the prospect, reinforce leadership, often reopens deals, right? And those happen naturally, right? So that's the optional clean exit. So if now isn't the right time, that's okay. As an example, right? Optional. Would you like to pause and revisit later? Right, you're given that option to pause or revisit later, or close this conversation for now. Either we pause, revisit this later, or close this conversation for now, right? So you're giving them three steps. There are three ideas there. You're giving them the pause, right? Revisit and close, right? So you're pausing, you're revisiting later, or you're closing the conversation for now, right? So that's respecting the prospect and you're enforcing leadership. Just remember, after hearing all of this, I want you guys to take away this. I want you guys to pause after each question. I want you to listen actively. I don't want you to interrupt. And this is all sales leaders. I want you to use neutral language that you can explore with. I don't want you to push I don't want you to push the prospect. I want you to guide them. I want you to repeat this flow for each objection raised. Create a video. Team up with somebody if you got to team up with somebody, and put your comments in below and um, share the video with everybody, right? So that way we can take a look at how that works. Again, you can turn this into any Zoom call flow diagram, right? Sure, right. So just make sure, again, when you're doing that and you're preparing for these meetings or you're talking to these people, you're ready to go. So I know we were talking about, I don't know how much time do I have here. I have enough time. Okay, so I know we were talking about the ask about your biggest problem before you mention your solution. Um, pitch, don't pitch immediately, right? Uh, you know, you're qualifying while they're still guessing. Number two, number two is number two. Let's make this a little bit. You know what? Let's draw this again here. I remember in school we had the negative, positive, positive, positive. Whatever. Not that it matters, but those were the days, right? And right, problem before solution, problem before solution, right? Repeat their problem, right? Number one. And number two, repeat it, right? Just repeat it. What else? Like I see a lot of people have different ways of doing things. Right? Like talking comes natural, right? You're not wired to copy or to string whatever anybody else says. It's just you're wired to speak the way you want to and the way you feel, right? Your audience doesn't know you yet, right? So people will care about you when you give a shit about them, right? Give a shit about them, right? Develop a bond of trust, with the community, with your community in general, with your friendships, with your families, with your cohorts, with your workers, with your colleagues, with your leadership roles, right? Any scenario, this will work, right? So repeat, right? Repeat their problem back, right? So that kind of confirms that you listen and you build that trust, that instant trust, right? They hear themselves in your response. Repeat, right? Easy. Number three, show them what happens if they don't solve it. Show them. Okay. If you got to show them. Easy, right? It's not what they gain if they buy. It's what they what they lose if they don't. And that's where the real urgency lives, right? Urgency. And I'm sure you guys heard that a lot. Urgency. Urgency, right? So what do they gain if they buy? What do they lose if they don't? And what's the real urgency? Urgency. All right. Number four, last one. Make your ask specific. Your ask specific. Sorry. Make your ask specific. So, does this work for you? Should we start with implementation next week or after, or a week after? Don't ask big questions like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" I've seen this before. Like which of these three options you want to start with? Like, ask something actionable, right? Oh, what do you want to do? Like, which of these three options you want to start with? That's what you want to do, right? Or should we start with implementation next week or the week after? Give two or three options, right? People respond better with the choices that are limited. What did I say? Ask specific. Sorry, specific. Okay. Oops. All right. You either qualify, right? Um, you confirm, you create urgency, and you close with choice, right? So you qualify, you confirm, you create agency, and you close with choice. The difference between an average performance and consistently closing deals while others can't. So understand that um, we can move forward with these simple packages. Go with the recommended package. Which one feels right for you today? Take the full solution. Which one feels right for you today? Or you can actually, add a time or step anchor, like, making it urgent and you're not really and directional without kind of pressurizing anybody. So if we finalize this today, can we have it implemented by next week? Like I said, right? Should we start implementation next week or the week after? Do you want to lock in option two today, next week? Or would you like to start with option one, finalizing this today? Urgency. Do you feel to confirm ready? Again, when you talk about that kind of stuff, you want to talk about, do you feel ready to move forward on one of these options? Do you feel more clarity first? Right. And then my fifth one, I know I had four here, but I showed you guys the paradox, the optional paradox, which is one of my favorite. And this is a bonus one for you guys. And I'll put bonus here for you guys. And I'm giving you a lot of great information, but it is what it is. This is all there. If they hesitate, you're gonna get hesitation. If today isn't the right day, that's okay. Would you like to schedule a follow to revisit or close this conversation for now? Right? You're giving them two options. So you're given that option of closing or following up to revisit. So always give two or three clear options, right? So follow up, revisit, you know. You want to anchor with the timing or step. You want to confirm what you feel, right? And then you want to pause a lot, right? Paradox, paradox. So that's those are the four steps. Have any questions? Put your comments in below. Message me the word leadership in quotes, like, comment for a copy of a PDF. Have a good day.